Hey guys, welcome to this video. I'm going to do phpNuxBill today. You may or may not be familiar with it. I haven't used it previously. There was a few requests come in to look at this. So it's basically a way that we can authenticate users as well as control various things like billing, purchasing of usage for various things. So I've kind of gone through the installation and the basic configuration. I had some issues initially trying to work out how to do it. There is some built-in like installer scripts and things which I couldn't get to run properly, so in the end I kind of just backdoored a lot of it, but it worked for me, so hopefully it worked for you. There are probably there's better ways of doing it, but anyway, see what you think. It's basically going to give us we're running a hotspot, and then we're going to use it to authenticate our users using a SQL database, which has also got the application running on it, and then we're going to create a basic username password for a user, but I'll show you how you basically set it all up, integrate it and everything. Before we jump into today's tutorial, I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, Admiral Platform, which is the easiest way to monitor, manage and maintain all your MikroTik devices from one cloud dashboard. So adding a device is really simple. Grab the config, paste it in your terminal, and then you're done. Your device is online and ready to monitor. With Admiral, you get live monitoring, up-to-date backups, firmware management, and even remote access. Everything you need to keep your MikroTik network under control, whether it's one device or a fleet. And here's a bonus: if you use my email address, hello@mikrotikmasters.com, as the referral email, you'll get a second month for free. If you want to see Admiral in action, check out my full review and walkthrough, and there's a link in the description as well below. Alright, let's get back to the tutorial. And sorry, one more thing before we do get going. I just wanted to let you guys know that I've recently launched a MikroTik course called Mastering MikroTik. It's very entry level for those that are new to MikroTik or new to networking. We'll go into some basic introduction to MikroTik and some basic routing setup. We'll also look at the firewall, VLANs, Wi-Fi, VPNs and bandwidth control, and it's just a bit more of a detailed look, and we can spend a lot more time going into some more detail in and around all the different setups, and there's downloadable config files for each of the key configs we set up. So yeah, it's all video based tutorials, so hopefully it's easy to follow along and get the information you need. So here we go. So there's gonna be a lot of steps to this, and as I mentioned, this isn't the advertised way necessarily. This is just the way that I found to get it to work. So I put all these steps down on my website, but it's kind of very much at the moment just a dump of everything. So I need to go through and actually tidy up a bit. But yeah, there'll be a link in the description below, so it'll be a bit easier for you to follow if you want to follow the way I've done it. So here's the GitHub repository. Basically has all the files on there, and then there is some installation instructions. I would use that term quite loosely. It seems I found this very hard to follow, and like I say, I still had errors when I actually deployed it. I struggled using the install script that's on there, but yeah, basically I've found a way around it. And then when it comes to linking in the database and stuff like that, again, I couldn't really do that for the GUI, so I'll show you the way I did it for your information. So, but yeah, we'll get going and I'll kind of explain as we go. So the first thing first is we're just going to install these applications. I've got a brand new freshly installed Linux Ubuntu server. It's Ubuntu server 22, I believe. There's nothing on it yet, so the first thing we would do is let's do an upgrade and an update. Always best to do this before you install anything. Okay. And if it's a fresh install, you may have some updates you need to do. So you do that with an upgrade afterwards. but all my packages are up to date because I've already done that. So now we can go ahead and install our web server, which is Apache 2. Okay, so it's basically, if you're not familiar, this is the app. That's how we're going to install it, and then the package we want. And I do that -y just because otherwise it'll ask you if you actually want a yes or no install it. Wait for that to finish. Okay. Now next one is the database, so Maria database and the client. Okay, and then finally the PHP libraries that we'll need. Okay, so that's those three things installed. Now we're going to actually download the repository we need. So 2 ways to do this. We can do it via click on this link here, and that's going to download the zip file. We can then unzip it and copy it across using something like WinSCP, or we can just use the wget, which is going to download it straight onto our server. So we just copy that, paste that in there. As you can see, it's downloading it pretty quick. Now what we've got, if we do an ls, you can see that there is a zip, and by default Ubuntu doesn't have an unzip function on it. So what we're going to do is just install it, and it's very simple. It's just called unzip. Okay, so now that's ready. So now we can just do unzip, and then the name of the file, master.zip. It's going to inflate all of that. Now if we do an ls again, we can now see we've got this other folder. We can look inside there as well. Okay, so now we've got it installed. Now we're going to actually move this into the repository, basically the directory for the Apache. We could create, so if you're familiar with Apache, you could create multiple websites within different directories, and then it's basically recognized on the URL that you go to. So that's basically your virtual host. However, for this example, I'm just going to put everything in the default one, and if you want to if you go to your web server's address without any changes, you get this. That's basically telling you that Apache 2 has been installed, and this is located in var www html, and that's the page there. So what we're going to firstly do is we're going to remove this page. So we do sudo rm that same directory. Don't want to remove the whole directory, and then index. Okay, and now if we try and refresh this, it's going to not work because there's nothing in that directory anymore. So what we'll move is we're going to move this folder into that directory. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called login. I'm going to put all the contents of this in there. So again, sudo make directory, again in there, and then put the name of the directory without anything else. Okay, now if we're doing ls in there again, we'll see that I now have this login. As you can see, files are white. They are on the way, the color scheme I've got, and folders are blue, the bluey purpley color. So that's now a directory. So now I'm going to move everything into there. So if to move, it's again sudo, because we're moving it into outside of our users folders. So mv for move. So I want to move the contents of this. So if I did If I simply did that, and then you put basically where you want the contents to go, you say it's basically source, and then the next one is destination. So if I did that, and then login, what it's actually going to do is we're going to move the whole directory into there. But what I want to do is move the contents only. So if I go back to here and I put a / and a star, so that means the wildcard, anything inside that directory now is going to get moved into there, not the directory itself. So if I hit enter for that, now if I do ls, the folder's still there, but if I do an ls inside that folder, as you can see it's empty. But if I do an ls inside this folder, there you go, so it's all being moved into there now. Okay, so that's pretty much that ready to go. Now we can tackle the database side. So what I like to do is not use the root. Basically, we need to create some databases and some users to use those databases. Now, normally you can just do that with the root user. If you don't set a root password, you can log in using sudo, and basically as root of Linux, you can log into the root. However, what we're later going to do is create, we're going to install a front end for our database, something called phpMyAdmin. And in order to have a root-like user to log into there, I want to create that same privileges but in a separate user. So I'll show you what I mean. So to log into MySQL, I'll do sudo MySQL -u for user, and then put root, and then -p for a password. Now, when it says enter password, we haven't set a password for root, but we're logging in as user. So if we just hit enter without typing a password in, we're now in our database. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll copy this across onto a notepad first of all. Again, this is all on here, so we're doing this bit right now, so don't panic if you're trying to keep up with what I'm showing you. I'll paste that in there. So basically you're going to run this command. This is an SQL command. It's going to create a user called master. This is the password it's going to use. It's just a random one I generated. And it's going to grant all privilege to everything for that user on anything on the local host on this machine, plus the privileges, and it'll basically close again. So change that master and that password to whatever you want. So copy that, and just right click, and it'll just make sure you've got these semicolons at the end, because then that basically knows it's a new line, and then it will quit and say bye. So now we've got that user installed. So I'll show you now, the reason I did that is we're going to go ahead and install the front end for my database, which is this phpMyAdmin. You can just see down there. So again, it's install my phpMyAdmin, and this is basically just a PHP page which is going to talk to our databases. So we just need to, when you come to this page, we're using Apache 2, so you just hit the space bar when you see the red there. Just hit space bar to put the star in it, and then tab to the OK and enter. Okay, we can just hit yes to that one. Password, we're not really going to use this user, but we'll just put something generic in. For this, I'll just put admin, and confirm it. There you go. Okay, there we are, we're done. So to access this now, we can go to that the IP address of the server, and then go to phpMyAdmin. There we go. Now I always use this if I remember dealing with databases. It's just much easier to. It's a nice, easy to use front end. You can do SQL commands and things in it, and manipulate the data as you wish. So this is where I can now use that master that I created, because otherwise I wouldn't have a login for this, because I can't log in as root with no password because he's going to complain. And I've got no other users. I've got that phpAdmin one, but that's only going to allow me to look at the phpMyAdmin database he created, and it won't give me the permissions to add new ones. So that's why I added that master one just because I can then do what I need to do in this front end. So I need that password I created. Okay. And we log in. As you can see, I can see down here all the databases that I've got. So there's that phpMyAdmin one, and then there's some generic ones which I just created. But I also got now permission to add new databases and user accounts. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a user account first of all. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I can also create the database at the same time, which I'm then going to populate from the phpNuxBill one. So we add a user account. So then username, I'm just going to call it phpNuxBill. Any host. Password, I will just generate one there. As you can see, it gives you that there. I'll just copy that, put that into here. Okay, and it populates there, or you can pick your own if you want. And then the important thing is create a database with the same name and grant all privileges. So we want it to be the same name as that. Yes, and then grant all privileges on the wildcard name as well. Okay, we're not going to give it global permission. It's going to have only permission on its own database. Okay, scroll down and hit go. Okay, now we can go to, there we go, we've now got a database. There's no tables in it, but there's a database. So now if I log out, okay, and now I log back in with that one I've just created. And that password, I've still got it copied. As you can see, I can only see now my one database. That's what we want. So we want that single user just to be able to use its own database. Okay. So back to our command prompt. Now what we need to do is, now that new database is created, we need to now populate with all the information, and that is located in the install directory. So if I just scroll up, or it takes too long to scroll up to find it, so I'll just do ls for www HTML login, and then install. See, here we want, so this is the database we want. That's why I gave it that name, because it's already there. And then we're going to use this radius one as well. So to import those, we're going to use the MySQL command. This time we don't need the sudo, because what I'm going to use is that master, basically the root minus password, and then give it the name of the data. This isn't the password I'm typing now, this is the name of the database. It's going to ask me, that basically means prompt for a password. phpNuxBill, and then less than symbol. Basically it's going to push what I'm going to type now into this database. So then we just put the location of it, HTML login install, and then we want the phpNuxBill one first. Okay, like that, .sql. So this holds basically a bunch of SQL commands which holds all the data and the tables we need. So we hit enter. Again, now this password I need to now put in is going to be this this first ship one. Try again. Okay, so the reason I wasn't getting anywhere with that was because I hadn't copied the first F. I was using the wrong password. There we go. That's more like it. So now back on PPPoE, logged in as I'm logged in as master. So I click on that again. I should see a load of tables in there. There we go. All fully populated. Now that we need to install some more tables into here, which is going to be the radius ones. So we go back to here, and we're basically going to do the same again, just up arrow and get rid of this and type radius. It's going to go into the same database. Again, give it that flashing password. I'll refresh that. There we go. So we've got a bunch of radius ones. So if you've seen my video about deploying free radius, these are basically the same tables that when you install free radius, the database it uses. So we've got the NAS one and the rad check are going to be the ones that we're going to be looking at, as well as rad replies. They're also useful. Okay, so we've got our database configured. Now let's start looking at configuring when installing the phpNuxBill. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to do a sudo copy the config file, which comes as is known as, always worded as sample. So if we do config, as you can see, .sample, now we want to call it, I always copy it rather than move. If I move it, it's going to rewrite it. But if it means I've then always got a copy of the original one, should I have any problems. Okay, so I'm just going to copy it to that. And now we can go ahead and edit it. To edit it, we're going to use nano. Let's do nano. Okay. Enter. Now we want to populate this information here. So host is localhost because we're on the same machine. Port is the standard, so we leave that blank. So the user isn't root. We want to log in with that user we created for this one. So just highlight that if I can. I thought that would happen. Okay, then we need to give it the password, which is what I copied off to here. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Username, password, basically. Database name, that's why I chose that name, because that's the one that's already here. You could be something else, it just needs to match. Okay, Control X, then Y for yes, and then enter. Okay, so that's that configured. Now what we need to do is make sure, so if I do an ls -la, I'll show you the, because I've been using sudo to copy stuff across. When we look at the permissions of the folder, as you can see, they've all copied across as master, which is me, what I'm logged in as. But this one was root, because that's the one I just edited using sudo. But the user of, or the owner of Apache is going to be www.data. So what we do to change it, we do a sudo again, we do change ownership, which is that command, do -r for recursive, so it's going to do it applied to all the subdirectories and files, and then we specify the user, which is that, and then we just do comma and then the same, so the same group. So basically that's user group, and we're going to apply the same user and group to the whole of the, basically the Apache web directory. Okay, hit enter. Now if I do that ls again, see now it's now changed to that one. Login is now, and then if I do one up again, they're all now owned by, so there'll be no problem with Apache being able to access these files. Okay, now as a cron job, you need to install, which if we go to ls www HTML login, and then system, see that cron php. So I'll just again copy this across. This is on their part of their instructions. So I'll explain what these mean when I actually copy it across. So this is what we need to replace with where we've replaced our, where we've installed our, basically this system one, this system directory, which is this one here. We can just copy all of that. We need the whole thing, and it needs to start with a /, so it starts from the root, because you don't know where that's going to get run from. So we can replace it with that. Okay, so basically the command is going to change directory, and then it's going to run the PHP cron. Okay, now we're going to add this to Copy this. Now what I'm going to do is get this to run by root. So to do that, I'm going to do sudo su minus su space minus, sorry. There we go. So now, as you can see, I've changed from master to root. Now I've got full permissions to do anything I like without passwords. But the reason I'm doing this is because for it to be able to run, root can run any file for any user. So I'm just going to put it under root for now. So cron tab. So a cron job is basically like a job that you want to run on a frequent basis based on certain criteria. So to edit it, we do cron tab minus E. It's going to first, let me ever do this, it's going to ask you which text editor you want to use, and we just want to use Nano, and it's always the one selected, so just hit enter. Now here we've got these basically refer to minutes, hours, days of the month, months of the year, I think, and days of the week. So if I make sure I've got that copied before I copy and paste it. So it's basically going to run every 4 hours. It's going to run basically whatever's in that cron, that PHP script. But I haven't quite figured out what it does yet. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is very much how I mastered how to install this thing. So it's not necessarily the right way to do it, but I thought this is how I managed to do it. So now we should be ready to load the web interface. So let's just go to the IP address of the server. And now if I just go to /login. So this is what the user would see when it gets the splash page. But for us to administrate it, we go to admin. And the default user is admin. Okay, save that. Now this is your dashboard. See, I still get this error. I'm not sure when this goes. I think it has to check. Maybe in 4 hours that will go when it's actually done the check. But anyway, so here we create our services, our internet plans, our customers. Now this, again, as I also mentioned, this isn't necessarily going to be a full deep dive into how you configure this up, because totally honest, as I'm making this video, I haven't actually used it in that much detail. I've only just managed to get it installed, so and very basic setup. So we'll go through that, and then I'll perhaps do another follow-up video once I've had some chance to play around with it. But then we have this network setting. This is where we're going to add our MikroTik router, and then there's some various other settings and things in here. Now, one gotcha I found. So when I was first trying to get the enable the radius part, which should bring up an extra menu here, I was going into here. It took me ages to find this bit first of all, and click save. It does this, and eventually it will stop, and then but nothing here. I'm going to refresh, still nothing here. What I found was the general tab up here is looking for some entries here. So if I just hit save changes, it says I have to fill this field out, and I think because it's hidden, it wasn't giving me that error. So what I went and did is just put 37 to 20 like it suggests. I don't know what these do yet. Again, I haven't come to that. Now I can save that. It should now let me save. Now I can go and do the free radius one. Change that to yes. There you go. Now it works. And then we'll see I've now got this radius tab. However, my next issue I had, when I click on this, I get the lady with the screaming with a router on fire. And I couldn't get past this bit, which is why because I've installed this, because I've added the NAS table here, I can actually bypass that bit. So I'll show you why I did that. But first of all, we're going to add our router. So we're going to network routers. Now this is the MikroTik. I haven't actually showed you the MikroTik yet. So this is just I've just got a HAP AX, very simple setup, just with I've got the only Wi-Fi in here is my guest SSID. It's already up, running and tested, but no password. And I've got 2 networks, just a local LAN bridge, and then I've added this extra VLAN 10 for my guest, which is applying that under configuration VLAN 10. So basically, when I connect to it, those 2 SSIDs, so 2.4 and 5 gig for guest, are going on VLAN 10, and I will then use hotspot, which I haven't set up yet. So, but for now, what we want to do is add the IP address of this. You need to make sure that this could be, so if your server is on a LAN which is managed, so a LAN of your MikroTik, then this step would be a lot easier. The only thing is my server is hosted beyond this one, still on my development network, but it's not on the same network. So I just need to make sure that this is reachable from the server, and B, that the communication between the two is happening between that IP and the IP of the server. So something I touched on when I did the radius setup in my other video. The best way to test it is we just do a open up a terminal. We do system. Well, firstly, can you ping it? So 221.40. Yes, it pings. Good. Now let's try and SSH to it. So system SSH. User is master. 10 221.40. Okay, just log in. So now I'm on that. I've logged in via the MikroTik. So then I go back to my here and I do tail /var, but this time log, and then auth, the auth log. Basically, this will tell me every time someone logs in, and as you can see, I've just logged in from this IP address. So as you can see, it's seeing that IP. So if there's any NAT or anything in the way, it would be a different IP address that I was logging in from. So you just need to make sure that you get that bit sorted before you go too far and you start having issues. So just a little bit of advice there. So that's my MikroTik. I'm going to create a new user, because I just think it's best practice. This user will need API access. I'm going to give it full access for now, but what I'm going to do is I'll just call it phpNuxBill. Full access, but I'll give it just a basic password for now. Make sure I'm typing those correctly. I can't actually unhide that one. Interesting. 1, 2, 3 will do. But I'm going to specify the allowed address. I'm going to specify the address of the server, so only the server can log in with that username and that password. So it's a little bit of additional security, because I've given full access. What I should really do is create a new group and specify what it can use. But I would need to. I know it uses API. I don't know if it uses SSH. But yeah, that'll be something I'll test, and perhaps when I come to do a bit of a more deep dive in how to configure it and use it, I'll revisit that section. So back to my here. So we're going to add a new router. I'm just going to call this my app. Give it the IP address, so the one it's going to access it on. Username is that one I just added, phpNuxBill, and then hello world 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then test connection. If you didn't have it, if you weren't sure whether it was going to be accessible yet, don't do that test connection, because it will complain at you. But that's obviously successful. Now we save changes again. Oh. Go back to radius. Okay, there we go. It did save it. You can see there's the username. That's sort of some sort of little security feature for you, I guess. Now this check now. Click on that. So that means it'll basically do a keep alive, make sure that the router checks that it's online. So go back to routers. There we go. That tells you that you can actually get to it. So we got our router in there now. Now let's go ahead and add our radius side of it. So we're going to add a radius client on our MikroTik. So click on radius and add. Now this is hotspot, and I'll just do PPP. If we were doing PPPoE, I'll just take the wireless as well. Address. So this is the address of my server. And then this is where it was important that the fact that we can talk between each other. So I can talk to the server. When I talk to the server on that IP, it sees that IP, and when the server talks to me on that, I see that IP. So there's no natting involved. Okay. Now we just need to replicate this now on that. Go back to your database, go into the phpNuxBill, click on NAS. Okay, we're going to add a new one. So NAS name is going to be the IP address of the incoming connections, where the connection is coming from the radius client. So the MikroTik is the radius client, and that's why I said that has to access it from that. So it has to come in from that IP address. It says name. It's name if you wanted to use a if you've got a host name configured that this can resolve to, then you can put that in there, or just use the IP address. Short name can be anything, so we can just call this HAP. The secret is that one I just used hello world 123, and then the routers, this option here, this can then match this name here. So copy that. Don't really need to copy it, but just always good if you've got a longer name. That's make sure you don't get a typo. Okay, add that. So that's now in there. We can set up our hotspot. So IP hotspot. Again, I've done lots of videos on this before. Very simple. Hit this hotspot setup button. Set the network, which is going to use hotspot. Next, we can just next through a lot of these. I'm going to go none for the certificate, and I'm not going to. I'll leave DNS out actually, because then it will just use the one I've set for DHCP. DNS name, I'm going to leave blank as well. So I'm just going to do it using IP addresses for now. I'll leave that as well. So in the previous video, my hotspot video, I actually used the host name for the so a DNS name rather than an IP address. But that was because the actual hotspot, the login page was running off the MikroTik, so the certificate actually live on here. To do it on the server, I've actually got to install the certificate on here. So that'll be a video for another day. Really, I just want to give you the kind of very basics setup of how to do it here, and then we can go through and actually set it up properly and tweak it a bit better. So there's my basically hotspot now set up. The other thing we need to do is go to service, into the profiles, hit the radius tab and tick use radius. The directory is this hotspot, and I'll go through that in a minute. We don't have a DNS name. That's where if we'd add a URL. Okay, and then the other thing is we're using HTTP for this one, not HTTPS. I'd always say use HTTPS, but again, I'm just for simplicity, I'm just going to use it without it, so we don't get any SSL errors. I did also already create a DHCP server prior to this for that network. So yeah, we're good to go. So users, there's that default admin one. I could just add a username and password in there. So now I want to go to guest. As you can see, this machine has no internet access. There we go. So it's just using the IP address rather than a host name, and we're obviously using HTTP, but just wanted to show you it working. There we are. Good to go. So let's go ahead and just kick me off that. Active cookies gone. Okay, So how we get this to now redirect. So I did one recently where I built my own captive portal and showed you how we did that. Similar process. We're basically going to go into files, and then, as I mentioned, that hotspot directory is this one here, and in here is a login.html. So what we need to do is just minimize all of this, and then we're going to drag him off onto there. You can right click and download as well if you want. I'm going to open that with Notepad++. Okay, and then as you can see, this is all basically the HTML content of that MikroTik splash page we saw. So I can do Control A and delete. And what I'm going to use is copy this across. Okay, so that's a bit bigger. Need to update that IP address. So what this is basically doing is a redirect. So I did a very similar thing with mine, where it basically redirects to a so it loads that login.html instead of displaying its content. It basically redirects, and then here's the URL it's redirecting to. So this could be a host name, but we just need to put in that subdirectory created. So basically, whatever, if we go to Chrome, load that in a new tab. Because I'm logged in. Let's load it in a private window. I'll show you what I mean. So what the user is going to see is what we need to put in there. Okay, I'll close that out. Which is what I need. There you go. Oh, sorry, I hadn't actually put it in there, had I? It's here. So yeah, that's what we need to put in, and then basically sending its MAC, the IP address, the host name, all of that information to the server when it does a redirect. So I copy that, put that straight into my HTML, login.html with the deleted content. I'm going to now save that, minimize this again, and now that's the file I've just saved it to. And now all I have to do is drag and drop it. Just if I do too high, it's going to go into one of these subdirectories, so it's best just to make sure you underline the file you're replacing, and it will just replace it like for like. Okay, so now let's click on that, connect to that guest again. There we go. So it's done a redirect, but I'm logged in as administrator. So it's as you can see, it's got my MAC address and my IP address, everything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out of here. Okay, now let's disconnect. Just trigger that again. There we go. So now I can now log in, but I've got no users created. So we need to go back to the dashboard. In fact, let's so we can do both. Let's use Opera. Why not? Let's use another browser. So we can administrate and log in all at the same time. /admin. There we go. Admin. Okay. Right, to add a user, what I found we have to do is we have to create the internet plan first. So hotspot. So we create a new one with that add there. So this is really to do with people being able to sell packages to people. So if you're an ISP and you want to sell PPPoE connections, or you hotspot, we can limit bandwidth. In fact, we need to create a bandwidth profile first. Yeah, and then this is basically the price. I can't remember what the RP stands for, but Yeah, so we're going to do it very simple. We're just going to create a user that has access to log in with. So let's go to bandwidth first and create a new bandwidth profile. Now it's got this these basically options down the side. So let's just go ahead and select the 2 to 4 meg, and it populates it all for us. Basically, we've got some burst thresholds, stuff like that. This all matches the profiles on the hotspot side of it. So I'll show you that once it's populated that. And we'll just call this one 2 to 4 meg or something like that. That'll do. Okay, so now we've got a bandwidth profile. Now we can go back to that hotspot, add a new one. Device is going to be MikroTik Hotspot. Package name, we'll just call it the same for now. Bandwidth, that's the one we're going to select. This, for some reason, we have to still populate, even though we're not selling it. So let's put something random in there. Well, shared users, we just have one. So we can select how long it wants to be valid for. So let's give it a year. And then the router we want to apply it to. Okay, save changes. Okay. Okay, so it's saved. So now we should go back to here. It's there. So now we can create a customer. Now you can actually as well, you can have this this side of it self-port, like where users can sign up themselves, and you can also distribute coupons. There's a way of generating coupons that you can then obviously give to people, so when they can sign up themselves, they just need a coupon, like just code. But I'll go into that a lot more detail when I come to actually do a bit more of a deep dive. So user, we have to just give it some generic stuff. Again, I think I seem to remember there was a way to password, change that. Yeah, there was a way to limit what you actually need to capture from the user. Okay, that should be okay. Oh, I don't need an attribute, sorry. Where's the okay option? Save. Okay. And then we go to services, go to customers, and then we go to recharge customer. You can actually do it from here. You can click the recharge button there. Select there's a user, going to go for hotspot plans. HAP is our router, then we can select that service plan. And we'll just say yes, we're using cash. Recharge. There we go. So then basically like a receipt. And then if you had a printer, you could then actually print this out. You can incorporate WhatsApp. You can do email. There's lots of, you can leaving text as well, SMS. But again, they're all things you need to set up as well. So now let's test that user out. So we should still be connected. Let's just trigger a new connection. There we go. Let's try that user. So it's user 1, and then hello world 123. Login successful. And there we go. And they have this like their own dashboard now. So as you can see, it's got my IP address, it's got my MAC address. Shows when it's expiring, so it's going to expire in September next year. Not online, so we can click that, log in now, connect to the internet. Okay, you are online. So now if I go to my MikroTik, look at my hotspot settings. So if I go to users, there you go. So it's added the user. It's created that profile. there. Rate limit there, and it says that I'm active. You can see it says I've got internet. My IP. There we go. So I'm online. So that's pretty much it. That's all I kind of wanted to show you now. And then once you get into the it's really to do with your use case. So what is your use case? What do you want this for? Are you selling, are you running a hotel, a cafe, that sort of thing? Are you an ISP and you want to sell PPPoE packages where people can basically come on? Go back to my other browser. I was logged into there we go. So I was back on here. No, it was on here, sorry. So if I log back out again. So here, sorry. So this is where you could then register. People can create their own. But obviously not selected, but allows users to create their own. And then they can basically log in and then administer their own, purchase their own usage, their own data, their amounts. They can probably select from a list. And that's what you can give them vouchers. Gives you the payment history. This is where you can buy your package. So we can then buy a package. Apply a voucher, which is not set up. And then presumably you can send them messages as well. So if you had like a halls of residence or something and you wanted to sell packages and talk to your clients by this, you could do it. They can log in and administer stuff themselves. So let me know what you think, if you've used this before, if you struggled to install it. And then maybe if you are interested and you want me to deep dive into how to set it up, give me some use cases, so and I'll know what I can try and do if you're trying to incorporate it with a payment gateway or something like that. I'll see what I can do. But anyway, thanks for watching. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you want to learn more, I've got the new course I've just launched. So check that out if you're new to MikroTik and you want a bit a wider sort of knowledge in how it all works from the beginning. Then hopefully that'll be useful for you. If not, I'll say thanks for watching and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.